What up, and welcome to the Roundtable. I am your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. What's going on today, brother?
Just trying to win some Masters tickets over here. Just trying to win that lottery. We're 7 years into this, or I don't know how. I think you have to start when you're 21, so maybe I'm 5 years into it. But it's that time of year, man, where you get all excited. You go enter in all your information, and then June 22nd, they hit you with the unfortunately you weren't selected email.
What do you think you have a better chance of getting, like the actual lottery, like the mega, what is it, the Powerball, or the Masters ticket lottery?
I just read this actually the other day. I think it's like super close to even.
Is it
I would
really? Oh my
rather
god!
I would rather win the actual lottery, but I think I don't know. I don't really understand. I mean, I would love to win any of them, but like I want the tickets on Sunday. I don't want to win the Thursday or the Wednesday practice round ticket or whatever.
Oh,
So
dude, imagine
maybe
like
that's what it is.
yes, like you're just
Oh,
all excited, like let's go. Oh, practice round. You're like, oh
what do you
shit.
do
Well,
then? Do you stay in Augusta for the week, or you go home and watch it
oh
at home?
man. That's tough because it's like you're not really on the ground. So it's like, do I go to a bar and just kind of chill, or do I just head home? Like, you see if you can buy tickets. That's tough.
I hope the Hawks are playing and head on down that way or something.
Yeah, something. Yeah, get some sort of, or maybe you can see the Braves. They should be playing around that time.
Yeah, if they're playing the Mets, we're good. Speaking of that, Bradley, you got your Yankees jersey in the background. You feeling good?
I'm feeling good so far. I mean, they haven't gotten bit by the injury bug. I mean, Stanton was on the IL for a little bit. They overcame that. They got bit a little bit, but normally it's at this point, the past like few years, the Yankees players are like an infirmary, man. Like they're all hurt. Judge is probably going to get hurt at some point. Just that's kind of how it is. But I'm feeling pretty good about it, man. The pitching's been great. I know you're happy about your Mets.
Yeah, we're having pretty similar baseball seasons at this point, but you're really a Phillies fan. I wanted to give you something to kind of take that pain away.
Well, it's like weird because like I like both teams and I say equally. Like I just because it's nice that one's in the AL, one's in the NL, so it's like you can kind of watch both leagues and kind of follow along with both. They rarely overlap, so I like both. Now I'm in New York, so I get to go to those games all the time. But I've actually been to more Mets games this year than Yankees games.
Says a little something.
I saw Marte
You can come
just
on over,
blast one
dude.
out. Oh, I can't do that.
You can
I
come
don't
on
mind the
over.
Mets. I don't hate them, so it's like I like Pete. Like you can't hate Pete, and I've always liked Lindor, so it's tough for me to be like, oh, fuck the Mets. But Tyson, we got a big show today. Obviously, we're gonna have to do some NBA Finals talk. It's kind of played out how we expected, so we'll give our breakdown. We're gonna give some of our key takeaways that we've seen so far, and break down some of the film that we've seen too. Us kind of analyzing what Kerr's put out there and how Udoka's kind of countered that, and vice versa. So we're gonna take you in there and obviously give our Game 3 preview, followed up with some money making time at the end as always. But we're also going to do a little what's trending in sports. There's actually been some news in the NFL. Aaron Donald got a new contract. Broncos sold. So we'll give our takeaway on that. And then the Live Golf League, that's been a little hot topic. And you guys know we like our golf here. So we're going to give our opinions on that and some trending things going around the world of sports.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. And unfortunately, what were you 6 for 8 before last week's golf tournament on your
Let's
outright
see.
bet?
I picked what is it? Five winning tournaments this year. I had
Yeah,
Burns 2 weeks ago, and then this past week I gave out Zalatoris and Joaquin Neiman.
yeah,
Neiman finished tied for third. Zalatoris finished tied for fifth. So we were right there, but Billy Horschel was just too good on Sunday. Just too good.
too good.
But let's get into it, Tyson. Let's talk. Let's go NBA Final. Let's do our check-in right now. If you guys are living under a rock, we'll update you. It's 1-1. Boston had an incredible fourth quarter in game one. Really threw a haymaker. Knocked out the Celtics, kind of blew them, or knocked out the Warriors, kind of blew them out in game one, late down the stretch. Game two kind of flipped. Warriors really showed their championship medal, had a huge response. They went ballistic. Curry was awesome. Draymond Green was really good in terms of what he does, impacting, winning, rebounding, getting in the head of the other player. And then the ancillary pieces on the Warriors, they stepped up. Poole had a good game. Wiggins played well. And Kayvon Looney was a factor. So it's 1-1. We're headed back to Boston for game three. where you and I thought this series was going to be, actually, Tyson. We thought it was going to be tied up, leaving Golden State, and it is. Give me your perspective on where we're at right now.
It's funny you say it's what we thought, because if you flipped the results of game 1 and game 2, that's exactly how I thought this thing was going to go. So it is a little bit interesting to me that it started out. The Celtics are the ones showing championship pedigree in game 1 with the 40 to 11 fourth quarter,
Yeah.
something like that. And then Golden State obviously just when they went full Golden State, which was pretty actually awesome. It felt good to see. It was kind of terrifying a little bit too, because it was like, oh, they're still there. Gosh dang it. But no, this is right where I thought the series was going to be. This is, I talked a lot about Al Horford before game 1, and he played really good in game 1. And then everybody who disagreed with me got what they wanted in Big Al in game 2. The lack of consistency from game to game doesn't worry me one bit if I'm a Warriors fan or I'm a Celtics fan, because we're 20-something games into this NBA playoffs now for both these teams, and they've shown us exactly this over and over and over again. So until we get in and kind of break it down, I mean, this is pretty close to what we expected here.
Yeah, and I laid the 4.5 with the Warriors in the second game. It's been consistent. I hear people out there, man, I'm frustrated because you never know what you're going to get with the Celtics. I say, that's the complete opposite. Like, you know exactly what you're going to get with the Celtics, and that's them having a great game and then losing. That's exactly what we saw. So it was no surprise to me that after the Celtics had a great fourth quarter, stole one on the road early too, because the goal is to win on the road and split. They accomplished that goal. They shut it down in game 2. You could see, okay, this isn't going to be our night tonight. Pull the guys. Let's get ready. Go back to Boston. I thought it was smart by Udoka to do that. There's no reason why you need to just keep those guys out there. They weren't going to come back anyway. They didn't have any mojo offensively. I think if you're going to look at this from a macro perspective, it's right where we thought it was. Celtics did their job stealing that game on the road. Now, if we want to go a little bit more micro, I think where you can be concerned, and that you have concerns if you're a Celtics backer or you're rooting for the Celtics, take away that fourth quarter in game 1, the Warriors have a dominating 2-0 lead. And the thought around the series is completely different. Obviously, that fourth quarter happened. We've seen the Celtics do that to the Bucks, the Nets. That's what they do to the Heat, obviously, in the Eastern Conference Finals. That's what they do. They can put together long strings. I think what's concerning to me, if I'm a Celtics fan here, the third quarters, the Warriors have been far superior as a team. They've blown them out in each of game 1 and game 2 third quarters. Obviously, that's something to do with an adjustment coming from halftime, where Steve Kerr's finding a way to be able to counter whatever offense and defense that the Celtics are throwing at them. So that's where I think they have to figure that out in Boston. I'm not sure exactly how they do it. We'll get to that in a little bit with our theory and our analysis of what we've seen so far. But I think that's what concerns me if I'm a Celtics fan here.
100%. It feels like what Dallas did to Utah and Phoenix earlier in the playoffs was just win third quarters and then tread water everywhere else. And it's a viable way to win, especially in a team like when the games are already close. Both games have been close at halftime. They're going to probably be close at half all the way through this thing, and dominating that third quarter, obviously sets you up in a really good spot to win. It's just the laziness when Golden State steps on your throat and they hit nine points in 3 possessions, 3 straight threes, and then they're not back on defense. That's where these games have gotten closer, I think. And I think Golden State wins game 1. If there was just any sense of urgency after every run that they made was met with a little mini run to stop the bleeding by Boston. And it feels like if Boston's doing that in Oracle, and Boston has been better on the road than they have been at home this playoffs, but the old adage, the lights bright, the role players are going to play better at home, right? They're going to shoot it better at home. Golden State has to find a way to make these little runs last longer than 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, because you look back up and it's, Boston scored 12 in a row. Because it's little things. It's not Golden State's missing shots, because everybody misses. If you make 4 in a row, you're going to miss 4. That's just the law of percentages. You're going to regress to the mean. but it's the quality of look that they're giving up to Boston on some of these. There's nobody within 6-7 feet on some of these things. And it's, oh, Peyton Pritchard's never shooting that good again. Well, if you give him that much space, he's going to.
Right, and these guys are in the NBA for a reason. We've seen all these role players have big games and big moments throughout the playoffs, whether it's the Grant Williams game, Peyton Pritchard had a big moment. Obviously, Al Horford in game 1 when he knocked down shots. The Celtics are capable. They're extremely deep, and they have lethal players across the floor that can beat you at any position. I think like you said, what's positive for the Celtics is they are getting good looks. It's just up to them to make these shots in game 4, or I'm sorry, in game 1 in the fourth quarter. That's what's going to look like if they can find their rhythm and their shot on offense. They're going to get good look after good look. Maybe they don't hit 70%. They hit 50% and they lock down that defense. I think that's going to be tough for the Warriors because we've seen so far in these 2 games, Steph Curry went ballistic in game 1 early. They found a way to slow him down. Klay Thompson hasn't been a factor at all. Jordan Poole had a good game too, but like, did he really, or did he just hit shots when they were up like 15? Because when it was close, okay, here's a layup here and there, but we were like, man, Jordan Poole went off. And it's like, well, look when he started going off. The game was already decided a bit. And I think, well, all points matter the same. I disagree with that. I think in moments when the pressure's higher and it's more difficult to score and more people are ratcheted up, yeah, the greater players need to make greater plays. And I don't think Jordan Poole's done that in this series. You don't know what you're going to get from Draymond Green on offense. Game 2, he was
I think
old
you do.
Draymond Green.
I think we might know.
But in game 2, he was looking like Draymond Green from the early dynasty Warriors. Like, he was aggressive getting down to the downhill.
Right, and you got a couple of slip layups and stuff like that. But like, you don't have to be. You could be in the key. This guy said he was going to be shooting 40% in the playoffs. He said it's about that time. And I mean, there's been some times where he might hit the side of the backboard. And I know now that I said that he's going to come out 5 for 5 from 3, but I think
you jinx the Celtics.
We give some of these guys a lot of credit for things they've done in the past, and we misremember. Right? I mean, the one that sticks out is when Draymond went 5 for 5 against Cleveland.
Yeah,
but there's 50 more times in the NBA playoffs where he's shot the ball exactly like this, and he's liable to maybe go off for 4 threes or something crazy like that. But that doesn't mean Grant Williams can't go hit 7 again, right? I mean, like, if we're gonna do this with Draymond, I think we got to do it with everybody. And I know the pedigree is different and all that stuff, but like, the dude can't shoot, and like, it's actually becoming a problem for the first time in his NBA career. Not that it'll affect this series that much, but I think moving forward, like, the creation stuff is great, but his passes have been a little sloppy so far. And when he's not getting those kind of slip layups where he gets one step and puts Al Horford on his hip so he knows he has it, it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more Russell Westbrook like, and I think we can. I think we can agree on that. I mean, people are.
Yeah.
When's the Draymond Green game coming? And it's like, I haven't seen a Draymond game in a long time.
And to that point too, he used to be a lot more aggressive looking to score on offense, where now he's looking to pass. And I think it's hard to flip that switch, especially in a spot like this, in a situation where, okay, now in the NBA Finals, I'm going to go be able to score 15. I don't think it really works like that. But that's our check-in so far. I mean, it's 1-1. Boston won the game 1 on the road. It's now going back to Boston in Wednesday. Golden State hasn't been great on the road this playoffs. Yes, I know they have the record of winning a road game in like 12 straight playoff series. This run so far, I don't think they've been particularly great on the road. Now, on the flip side, Boston hasn't been particularly great at home either. So something's got to give here. I wouldn't be shocked if it was a split. But let's move to key takeaways, Tyson, because we started doing it a little bit. Well, let's jump into it now. For you, what's been the biggest takeaway that you want to point out to our audience that you noticed during game 1 and 2 of the series?
I feel like everybody's like JV basketball coach that was like 70 years older than the player. Make your layups. But that's really what it feels like. Golden State can't make a fucking layup. It's the weirdest thing. And like, not all of them are wide open. And that's another key takeaway that I have too, is they have to figure out a way to deal with Robert Williams. We said this, and maybe he's going to be a little banged up. He was limping around in game 2, but that dude is blocking like 33% of the shots that the Warriors put up on the rim when he's
Yeah,
around. It's
nuts.
it's a problem, and they're getting packed all the time. Derek White is, getting up and blocking people, and I think it's just a product of what we were kind of saying a little bit before, where they're just a little bit too finesse, right? And it's not a dig at the Warriors. I think the Western Conference in general is a little bit more finesse than the East. I think you have to be tougher at the top end of the East to come out, at least the way they play. Um, and I think Boston is just packing the paint on those drives and making things really difficult for Golden State. But some of them, like Klay Thompson's missing layups. Gary Payton yesterday got a foul call when nobody touched him, and
Yeah,
he almost
Wiggins
missed the.
smoked like 3.
Yeah, it's bad. And like, good thing Kevon Looney is like the second coming of Dennis Rodman for like 5 minutes a game. But like, it's a great way to lose a game really fast. And you can shoot 40% from three, but when you're shooting 30% at the rim, it's not a good look.
My biggest takeaway is when Boston is flowing on offense, so when they get into rhythm, and a rhythm that we've seen since the All-Star break on offense that's propelled them to have the best record in the NBA since the All-Star break. They are really, really hard to guard, and the Warriors have had a lot of trouble guarding them. Obviously, the examples the fourth quarter, obviously early in the first quarters in both of these games, you can see that on display.
And at the end of the seconds.
And into the seconds, yeah, when they settle in and they get the ball moving. I don't know what's going on there where they revert away from that. Now, I don't know if that's just the players are getting it, like wanting to take everything on themselves, but they get very ISO heavy, which is how they used to play. So they're reverting back to old habits. I don't know if Udoka is telling them in the timeouts or telling them on the floor, like, yeah, you guys got to move the ball. Like, I don't know if it's a lack of him reminding them. I don't know. I'm not on the sideline. I'm not there. I'm not in the locker room. But there's a noticeable difference between how elite the Celtics are on offense, how hard they are to guard when they're sharing the rock, when they're moving around, running off of ball screens, giving high, low action, things like that, than when they're just standing and watching in the corner. Okay, Jalen, go break down one-on-one. Okay, Jayson, go break down one-on-one. If you get doubled, kick to the corner. Let's hit a 3. Like, that's not been working for them. And you can see the splits. It's night and day with when the Celtics offense is flowing, how much better they are. So my takeaway is they have to find a way to be consistently locked in on offense where they're moving the ball around and have constant motion. That's going to make them difficult to defend. And honestly, against a Warriors team, like you said, with old reputations, we think Warriors are solid on defense. Warriors are this because they've done it in the past. They are very leaky. They have players on the floor right now who I think are a little past their prime. Defensively, obviously, Steph's never been a great defender. I think he's a solid defender now, but Clay's past his prime. Wiggins, I think, is good, but when you have to go up against Tatum and Brown constantly, there's going to be breakdowns. And then, like you just said, Robert Williams is an issue offensively on the glass, and Al Horford can stretch out Draymond Green. So there are opportunities for the Celtics to really exploit a Warriors defense, which I think can give up a lot of leaks.
That's one of the big takeaways I have as well, is that Golden State to this point, and they did a better job at it closing game 2, but they're playing Boston an awful lot like they played Dallas, and just being like, okay, you guys got to make them. It's like the Mavericks just missed them. Game 1, Boston comes out in that fourth quarter. There were, Al Horford hit 5 threes, and I think he might have had one contested jumper in like the whole
Right.
game. And it's just things like that Steve Kerr did a much better job, and they kind of started locking in at the end of game 2. But those habits are going to be hard to break, because if you've been watching Golden State, they all season long they haven't really been getting in the face of jump shooters. And Boston has a bunch of guys that Marcus Smart will pull from 30. They have guys that love to take jump shots, and so if they're open, they'll take them. And I do think underrated point here so far is both teams seem to want to run when they get the opportunity, but neither team has really been able to take a huge advantage in the fast break, just because of how good the defenses have been at getting back, specifically Boston, with one-on-one defense or one-on-two defense, but just carelessness with passes over and over again. And Boston fell victim to it in game 2, but Golden State was turning the ball over like crazy in game 1. It has those things, I think are going to get tighter as the series goes on. And I think Boston has to go quicker in the half court because Jayson Tatum getting the ball 35 feet away from the basket, and Williams and Horford don't know if it's one of them that's supposed to come up and screen or what we're doing here. And then all of a sudden we get a step back, 30-foot Jayson Tatum three. He's been making them, but it's not good offense, and I trust Golden State more in the half court. And so I think one of the things Boston has to do is just get going with 13 seconds left on the shot clock instead of, oftentimes it's 9-8 before Tatum even touches the ball.
Yeah, Tatum and Brown are taking a lot of tough contested shots. Like you said, they can make them, and they have made them, but you got to find a way to get to the rim, and that's what they need to do. They need to be aggressive going to the rim. They need to get to the foul line. That's where they've had a lot of their success, both those players. And once you get to the rim, once you get to the foul line, you see some shots going. That increases your rhythm. You see the ball go through. Talk to any former NBA player. They'll say, hey, if you're struggling, you got to get to the rim, get fouled, go to the line, see that thing through. You're good to go. Another takeaway I have here, I think Golden State's going to, as the series progresses, they're going to have to make some serious personnel decisions on who they want on the floor to close, who they want on the floor at times when Steph isn't on the floor. Because when Steph hasn't been on the floor, which is the start of the first, and I believe the start of the second or early second, Boston's been able to really take advantage of that split when he's not on the court. One, because you take your best weapon off the floor offensively, so that helps Boston's defense kind of shut down the other players. But two, during that time, it's a lot of it is with Jordan Poole and Klay Thompson on the floor at the same time. Poole is not a good defender at all, and I think Thompson at this point in his career is average to below average as a defender. Like, he just does not have the lateral quickness anymore. The guards are able to just go around them, and you can see a lot of defensive breakdowns from the Warriors. So I think Steve Kerr is going to have to figure out, is it more Gary Payton? I mean, he's not able to shoot. He's not able to be offensive, but he can give us something on defense. Are we able to sacrifice our offensive output to try to slow down the Celtics when Steph's on the floor? And can we manage enough until we get him back in? Or do we just say, hey, fuck it, we're just going to try to outshoot him with Poole and Klay on it? Hopefully Klay can catch fire a little bit in this series where you can kind of live with those minutes where you're giving them up defensively. But I think those are big questions that the Warriors are going to have to ask, especially as we get further and further into the series. There's going to be more minutes on more legs.
I really hope that happens because I'm curious how Boston's going to run the stagger between Tatum and Brown. Like, who gets to come out with that second unit if Steph's going to stay in the game, or if we're going to make a change here to go for more scoring. Because, I mean, Boston's bench has been killing. They've been killing Warriors starters for stretches of this first couple games here. And I think Golden State's just – the bench can't really rebound. The bench can't really guard. But the bench can light it up in the right circumstance. And that circumstance has presented itself for a couple 2-3 minute stretches so far in this series. And I think that's something Boston's going to lock in on, obviously. But I think is Steve Kerr the one to make the first move here? And how does Boston kind of combat that? Because, I mean, Steve Kerr, like, that dude wrote The Art of War. Like, he's trying to play somebody like a fiddle. I mean, it took superhuman performance from LeBron James and Kyrie Irving to be like, you know what, fuck your schemes.
Yeah.
But like Ty Lue's like a good coach, but he got out. Steve Kerr was throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him, and it just wasn't working. But we've been talking about Udoka as an awesome head coach and everything, but it is still, I mean, it's his first year and it's his first time in the finals. Steve Kerr is, what does Shaq say? G14 classification.
Yeah,
that's what Steve Kerr has.
All right, well, let's talk about those coaches then. Let's do a little film study real quick because, like you said, I mean, Steve Kerr comes out, he sees what you're doing, sees what you want to do, and he always has, it seems, a little counterpunch or at least a little counteraction to negate what he can or take advantage of it. Udoka throughout the playoffs, like you mentioned, he's been really good doing the same thing on his own level. Interestingly enough, both coming from that Spurs tree, and Popovich, who's been, really good at in-game adjustments. So, little chess match between the coaches here. Obviously, there's going to be an adjustment. I mean, what I think Kerr did from game one, really spread out the floor a lot. I think that put Brown and Tatum into a lot more open guarding situations. I think it made it difficult on them. They had to work a little bit more, which I think, quite honestly, slowed them down a little bit on the offensive end for the most part. Other thing, too, it felt like Steve Kerr went a lot deeper into his bench earlier. Like, and he does that, right? Like, he'll play a guy. If you're on his bench, he'll play him. I think everybody but Moody and your boy Kuminga's played this series that I've seen. So even my boy
And
Bielitsa got in, which we
Moody
joked
played
about.
last night.
He did. That's right.
Yeah,
Because
so
they
it's just
pulled the benches
Kuminga.
in. So just Kuminga. So I'm curious. I want to know how Udoka is going to match that. What he's going to do to counter that. I think Smart's been a little subpar in this series. He gets the Defensive Player of the Year award, and then I don't think he's done that great of a job on Curry. Obviously, that's difficult, but it doesn't seem like he slowed him down at all. So how does he counter what Steve Kerr wants to do, where it seems like, hey, let's get your best players in space and force you to defend, where you're not helping off of our players?
And I think one thing Boston, it's too easy for Steph to get matched up on Al Horford after a switch right now. I mean, it's too easy, right? I mean, nobody's fighting under the screen, fighting over the screen. You're not blitzing Steph's like right hand or whatever as soon as he gets the ball. I think it'd be really advantageous for Boston to try to blitz that hand and get him to move the ball when Draymond is going to be the swingman. Because to be quite honest with you, I know Draymond's a fantastic passer, but in those 0.5 seconds where it's shoot, drive, or pass, I think I'm more afraid of Andrew Wiggins right now if I'm Boston. Because if you over pursue, somebody's getting dunked on, right?
Yeah.
And Draymond's going to make the right pass, but it's just slower. It's just a little bit slower right now. And, maybe he makes the right play 9 out of 10 times, which makes it worth it, which, is kind of the way Draymond plays basketball. He's a really good player. But, like, if you can blitz that hand and force the ball to Draymond, it gives guys more time to recover because it just is going to take him longer to put the ball on the floor and make you react. Whereas if you're going to blitz that hand and it's Wiggins, I think that's when you have to start. Al has to show high on the screen, and then Smart has to fight his ass off to get back to him, Matthew Dellavedova style, really, to go back to those days. But it's just been too easy for Golden State to get the matchups they want so far, which is fine when you can switch 1 through 5 on everybody in the East. But Steph Curry is not Jimmy Butler, and Al Horford's been doing fine. But if I'm Steve Kerr, I want that matchup 100 times in a row.
Yeah, that's a good point. You got to get the ball out of Steph's hands. I think then are you liable for somebody else to go off while Steph Curry is still going to get his a little bit? That's the risk you got to play.
But you have to. You have to take that risk
because you can't just let Steph cook you for 45. Because Wiggins, like you said, he's going to get a silent 18. He's going to get a silent 20. Poole's going to put in 10, 15. And with Curry going off, that opens up everything for the rest of the role players. So that's interesting there. I mean, for me on the other side, what I want to see counter-wise with Udoka, he's got to find a way to get Brown and Tatum into the lane. Like, enough of, like, I see what they're trying to do. They're hunting mismatches as well, trying to get some switches because the Warriors will switch. But once you get that switch, it feels like Tatum and Brown are just settling for, like, step-back contested jumpers. He's got to figure out a way to get them easy looks at the rim. So, like, off-ball screens, them, kind of curling over the top, getting them downhill. I mean, Brown's an elite athlete. Like, if he's going downhill, it's really hard to stop him. So that's what I want to see him do. Just find a way to kind of what Golden State's doing now, but really spread the floor, open that runway for your athletes, not force them into shooting over kind of like the muck and the wall that Golden State wants to put inside the paint, and find a way like they did in the Bucks series, quite honestly, instead of just relying on a three-point jumper. You have to get into the lane at some point and make shots at the rim.
And they killed the Bucks on cuts. And they were quick with decisions. And there's been probably 15 times so far this series that I can just think of off the top of my head where there was a cutter who flashed for a second and they were open and the decision was gone. And you either have to eat that pass and now we're into ISO, or it's a turnover. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just, it's the NBA Finals. It's scary. But, like, these guys are doing the right things. It's just sometimes the execution is not perfect. Whereas Golden State, sometimes the execution doesn't have to be perfect because they know the right thing to do. So it's like instead of playing 2 for 1, they're going to play 3 for 2 because like we don't want Steph shooting it from 60. If he can shoot it from the half court line as the buzzer goes off, we got a much better chance to make it. It's just a little tiny, and Golden State's been doing a way better job than Boston, I think, of controlling the clock so far this series. And pace is just one of the most underrated things of any basketball series or the mark of any really good team too. Is Golden State's just kind of the timeouts are coming when Steve Kerr wants them, right? The the momentum shifts are almost being. It feels like he's over there with like a little watch,
Yeah,
speeding
right.
him up, slowing him down. It's been impressive, and Boston is still, except for the beginning of that fourth quarter when Jaylen Brown kind of kicked it off, scoring a couple really tough buckets in a row. It's like Golden State's been dictating the pace, and Boston's just been reacting. Where I think Boston has to get out there, and they've been trying to set the tone in the first quarter, but it's hard, and it's hard. You don't unless you're Dallas, you don't win a game in the first quarter.
Right. Right.
So it's tough.
And to that point, I mean, I think that's the difference between one team who has Steph Curry handling the ball for the majority of the time, or Draymond Green, who I mean, before we started, in our preview before the finals, we said that's his impact. He knows how to control that offense. He knows exactly what that team needs and when, versus somebody like Marcus Smart, who this is really the first year that he's had the ball in his hand as the primary ball handler. So I think to your point, that's definitely something to keep an eye on going forward in this series. Now let's preview game 3, Tyson. Like, what are you expecting in game 3? We'll talk about our bets and money making time as we always do. Get you guys ready for that on Wednesday. But game 3, what are you expecting? We just talked about pace. If there's anything on that front, or if you have anything like a nugget that you think we're going to see on Wednesday.
I think that the game's going to be close through the first half again, and I'll know more by about 4 minutes into the third quarter. But my initial feeling right now is that Boston is going to get that third quarter corrected with all that juice at home. Right, it's going to be hard to come out flat, and maybe they come out and put up a stinker, but that's not who I think this Boston Celtics team is. I think they're going to rally and respond, and I think that we're going to see, another. I think Boston's going to win the game, first of all, but I just think that if Golden State leaves those guys wide open again, like ask Milwaukee how that one went.
Mm.
I mean, the Heat tried to get up in them, and it still didn't matter because once these guys get cooking at home, it's tough. There's not a whole lot you can do with these guys.
Yeah, I expect them to make a major adjustment. We've seen that from the Celtics all playoffs long. I think you're right with there. I think they'll get the third quarter corrected. What I'm expecting is the Celtics to hit a lot of threes, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Like, they're home. We kind of tiptoed around it, but I think it's Grant Williams is going to play well. I think Peyton Pritchard is going to play well in spots. I think we're going to see a big game from Marcus Smart. Like, he's due for one. I think him and Horford combined for 4 points in game 2. Like, yeah, Derek White, now Horford aren't going to play like that in game 1 again. Yeah, and they're not going to play like Marcus Smart and how Horford just played in game 2 again. So I think it's going to be a big 3-pointing game for the Celtics. I think they're going to use inside out technique. I think they're going to try to get Robert Williams involved at the rim, dunking the basketball. That's seemed to be a huge thing.
It's
The
so
Heat we've
easy.
seen.
It was so
easy
easy
for him, especially with Tatum just rolling downhill. Like, okay, you're going to give Tatum a layup or a dunk, or you have to go help and it's just throw it over the top to Robert Williams. I think we're going to see a lot of that and a lot of threes.
All right, then we don't even have to get into the money making time for it, but I think we'll be riding the 2 threes in the first 3 minutes or whatever it is. 3 threes.
Oh God, have you been? Do you like those bets? Have you been hitting those?
No, I don't ever bet those because I don't. It doesn't. Sometimes NBA teams don't score. A combined 30 points in the first quarter, and they still score 100 in the game.
Yeah.
Like the first 3 minutes, I have no idea what could. It could be PJ Tucker had the first 5 points, I think, of the game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. It took like 3 minutes to get there.
So for those of you who are like, what the hell are these guys talking about? So there's something you can bet. It's called like a 2 for 3 or 2 by 3. So you need two or more 3-pointers to be made in the first 3 minutes of the game. So that's obviously the tip at 12, and then anything down to like 9:01 in the first quarter.
Right.
So in this, for 2 to be made, yes is -110, no is -110. I mean, I I've played this a couple times. It's like really fun, actually. Like it's just like you throw a little small change on it, and you're like, oh, let me just sweat something fun out. I like this bet as a yes for sure.
Yeah, me too.
So this I'm gonna have to definitely hit this, but I like that a lot. But we'll get into more. We'll get into more of our bets for this game as well as other stuff. I got a hockey play, maybe dabble in some soccer. I'm not sure. I was looking at the board, but I'm not sure. But let's move on to what's trending in sports, Tyson. Besides the NBA Finals, I mean, it's basically what's been dominating us. But um, there's some other stuff going on in the world of sports. Obviously, the NFL, that's a huge headliner. There's a couple things happening there, and then in the world of golf that we want to touch on. But real quick, what's trending right now? The Avalanche have beaten the Edmonton Oilers in overtime. They are moving on to the Stanley Cup Finals after sweeping in the Western Conference Finals. An Avalanche team that has choked, has underperformed. You can just throw everything at them. This seems like it's their year right now. They're going to be waiting for a while for the winner of the Rangers and the Tampa Bay Lightning series. So we already have one team in the Stanley Cup Finals. They will be waiting the winner again of the Eastern Conference Finals between the New York Rangers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So that's something that just came through the shoot right now. You've been watching the Stanley Cup, by the way, Tyson?
I'll watch. Yeah, I like watching the playoffs. I don't know enough about each team individually to go through and kind of pick my spots as far as betting goes. But I mean, I've say it every year. I think playoff hockey is the fucking best.
Sick. It's sick.
So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and
And they've
I
been
had the
just
Oilers tonight.
raining goals all playoffs long. It feels
Dude,
like it's
been
just
nuts.
it's been fan friendly for sure.
I had the Oilers tonight, full disclosure, and that they're piece of shit goalie Mike's. I mean, he's awful. Like I didn't know anything about this guy. I mean, they have McDavid, who's the best player in the world, and Draisaitl's like top 5, and they get swept because their goalie's a moron and just gave up, I think, 6 goals in the third period in overtime. Like, give me a break with that. But unbelievable. And everybody's just ragging on this guy right now, Mike Smith. I feel bad for him, but like, dude, you're awful. So, well, no Connor McDavid.
You just called him a piece of shit. You said this piece of shit. I don't know anything about him. Everyone's ragging on this guy, but this guy sucks.
He's bad, so I feel bad by saying that, but I'm just like, dude, how can you be that bad? Like, it's just atrocious. But it should be exciting. I mean, if you haven't seen the Avalanche, they are fast. Like, they fly up the ice, so they are very exciting, and they could potentially be playing a Rangers team who's young, way ahead of schedule. I think their average age is 24 years old. They fly up the ice. If those two teams match up, it's going to be a blur. It's going to be really fun. Or the Avalanche are going to have to take out the Tampa Bay Lightning, who've only won, I don't know, 2 championships in a row, going for their three-peat. So it's going to be good. So if you're like, basketball's taking forever, tune on the old puck. And
which it is, by the way. I mean, no NBA Finals on Saturday.
Nah,
how are you going to do that? That's a staple. That's like every year we get an NBA Finals game on Saturday, and you take that away from us.
I don't know what's going on. But that's what's going on in hockey. Tyson, in the NFL, Aaron Donald just signed a new contract, and he got the bag. And the details pretty substantially here. If you want to lay that out for everybody.
Well, I think it's it's been hard to read. It's 2 years, $65 million fully guaranteed, and then there's an opt out in 2024 for him to presumably retire. But if he decides he wants to play, he gets another $30 million fully guaranteed. So the contract you see out there is 3 years, $95 million. When in reality, it's a 2 year, $65 million contract. That by then the NFL might have new TV money or whatever the case is. Or if Aaron Donald wants to keep playing, there's a 99.9% likelihood that he says, "Well, I'm worth more than $30 million now." So they'll be doing this again in 2 years. We'll do this whole thing, but 2 years, $65 million fully guaranteed, and it's fun to make fun of. And the first thing I said, I was like, "Oh, that's Derek Carr money." Like this dude is getting paid like crazy. But how many quarterbacks in the NFL would you rather have than Aaron Donald?
How many quarterbacks?
Yeah.
A lot. I mean, I'd rather have Carr than Aaron Donald, though.
It's confusing, right? Because everyone's like, "Oh, it's quarterback money. It's quarterback money," but like, he's in a perfect situation where he's on the Rams, who have. By the way, where are they getting all of this money?
The Rams, dude, it's all fake.
Everybody
Dude. I
is.
don't know what's going on.
I know everybody over there is paid. Everybody over there is just, except for Cooper Cup, but everybody over there is paid.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
and
crazy.
it's blowing my mind. But like, there's one team in the NFL I think he gets this deal on, and he happens to be playing for him right now. It's a good thing for them because he happens to be maybe the best defensive football player of all time. Um, and I think that's what's been pissing me off today is like, oh, you should never pay somebody this much money, blah 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 blah. It's like that dude. It took us a year, a year and a half to get over JJ Watt. But when when JJ Watt put together those 3 years and it's like this guy's the GOAT, it took like a year and a half of Aaron Donald for us to be like, oh, never mind. Like this guy, he is so special. He's probably the best football player in the NFL, and I think he's worth every penny of this contract. And it's it's just weird the way the conversation is around this contract. Like, can we just get over they all make a fuck ton of money. Cap's not
Yeah.
real.
Yeah, exactly. And the Ram, if there's anybody who's figured out a way to manipulate the salary cap, it is the Rams. So kudos to them. Kudos to their players for getting paid as well. I'm not going to hate anybody for getting cash. But the fact that people were saying JJ Watts is one of the best, it's like the best, like the GOAT defensive end is so disrespectful to anybody that came before. I mean, Bruce Smith, Reggie White. I mean, Lawrence Taylor. Like, come on. Like, what are we doing here, people? But yeah, I mean, Aaron Donald's definitely in that discussion for sure of greats and greats. I mean, obviously this is great for the Rams. I think. I mean, it's going to keep a locker room full of guys. It's like, hey, imagine if that guy didn't get paid, and you're like, yeah, thanks for everything. See ya. That's gonna. I think that's what people I think don't understand about professional sports is when the guy who works his ass off is the best player in their locker room, who's committed a ton to your franchise, finally wins the ring, which he said he wanted to do. He accomplishes it. He wants to come back and play for the Rams to compete for another one. They're like, thanks, but no thanks. We're not going to pay that much. Go let Jacksonville pay you. Like, people get pissed off by that in the locker room. They're like, what the fuck are we doing here? For them to commit to Aaron Donald like this, I think that sets a good feeling in the locker room going into a year. And I think a short window for this Rams team, Super Bowl window, that is, where they're like, hey, listen, we got rid of all these picks. We're paying a ton of guys right now. We got to go all in these next couple years, 3 years. Or, I mean, what's the point of what we just did? So they have this window. I think they're going all in. This contract signifies that. And I think it's smart, obviously, for Donald, but I think it's smart for the Rams. This is your window. Go for it. Keep Aaron Donald there. He's your anchor. And let's try to run this thing back again.
And I do think this is the first time ever that the best player in a position has become the highest paid player at that position. Could you imagine if like Javon Hargrave got this contract, like how Christian Kirk got the wideout contract, and it was like, whoa, this guy broke the market. Like this is the first time I was like, oh, it's Aaron Donald. Like I guess that's what he costs. Right. So that one made sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of big money, Tyson, this is kind of a shocker to me. But the Denver Broncos have just sold, and there's been rumblings, that this deal would kind of go through. I know Forbes valued this franchise at $3.75 billion a little while back, and I think for some people, like, really, Denver, like, it's kind of surprising. Well, it just sold today for $4.5 billion, the most expensive sale for a professional franchise in the history of the United States. Going to be acquired by Rob Walton, obviously an heir to the Walmart franchise and the franchise like conglomerate, I guess, for lack of a better term here.
I'm sure they own a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah. So Broncos are sold to an owner who clearly is not afraid to spend money. I don't know too much about Rob Walton. It's not like somebody's coming in like David Tepper, who bought the Panthers. We knew he was involved with the Steelers for a long time. We knew he was the minority owner there. We knew kind of his backstory, how he got involved in sports. We don't really know much about Rob Walton when it comes to sports per se. Maybe there's going to be some things that come out, he's always been a big sports fan. He's been involved in this kind of on the fringe. Right now, I don't know too much. Maybe you know more, Tyson. There's probably stories out there about his involvement in different things. For me, what this signifies for the Broncos as a franchise, though, which is good. I mean, to sell to somebody who's interested in acquiring and pay money like this, obviously they're going to be invested in the franchise. I think that's really all you can ask if you're a fan or a player, is that your owner is willing to spend money to improve the franchise and to make an investment in the players and the organization itself.
We just learned exactly how much a shot of the Super Bowl costs in billionaire speak, because like, it's a weird timing. You go out, get Russell Wilson, you make all these moves, you're super exciting. For the first time in a couple of years, people are picking you as, you're one of the favorites to win the whole thing. And somebody came knocking with $4.5 billion. So that's how people always say Super Bowl is invaluable. Now I'm going to show them this. I say no, it's just unattainable for everyone else. So
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's cool, right? I mean, it's always fun when we get new owners, but like to me, it doesn't matter at all if he knows he could know nothing about football as long as he's not like Shad Khan and he's closer to some of the other guys. I don't like most of these guys are just happen to be rich and like sports. And like that's
Mhm.
kind of the dream, as much as it's like, man, these guys suck. All the companies they run suck, blah, 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 blah. It's like, yeah, there's all that stuff. But like if I could do anything, it would be to have enough money to be like, oh, I think I'm gonna buy the Broncos today.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty awesome.
And here's to put in a little perspective. I had mentioned the Panthers and David Tepper beforehand. That's franchise sold in 2017 for a then league record $2.275 billion. The
Inflation.
Broncos have been the first one to sell since then, about 5 years ago, and they just sold for 4.5 billion. So that'll put in a little perspective on
The whole
like Ty said,
UFC costs
inflation or just
$4 billion.
anything. I mean, it's crazy.
It's ridiculous. But I mean, I can't even wrap my head around that much money.
Speaking of big money too, I mean, talk about this Live Golf League. I mean, if you're not a big golfer, Tyson and I are, so we want to talk about this. But this is kind of like turned into a big thing with the Phil Mickelson controversy. This is a Saudi money-backed new golf league that's supposed to challenge the PGA Tour. They've been talking about poaching current players, current big names, really kind of sneakily under the table approaching these guys and try to pull them away from the PGA Tour. Obviously, the PGA Tour didn't like that, so there's like a little feud going on between PGA Tour not allowing players who go to this league to play in their tournament. Like it's a whole little war in the golf world here.
It's gonna
Mickelson,
get crazy too.
it's going to get crazy. I mean, and Mickelson kind of got a little backlash for, voicing support for this. Was silenced into not being able to compete and try to repeat at the PGA Championship this past year. But we've gotten details about what's going to happen here. An 8-tournament, 7 regular season event that's going to end with a season closing team championship tourney. $225 million in this event. The first one, which is in London, which is upcoming here soon, is the purse is $25 million. The winner's share is going to be $4 million. So massive numbers we're talking here for these golfers. The two of the biggest names in the sport, Phil Mickelson just announced he's going to the Live Golf League. Dustin Johnson, sure you remember that name. He's going to the Live Golf League. Like there are names that if you're a golf fan, you'll remember. Graham McDowell, to name a few. I mean, Louis Oosthuizen is one of Masters, just to name a couple guys there who are going to be involved in this league. Jack Nicklaus was approached to be the CEO. He turned it down, apparently, as Greg Norman just called him out in the media today, saying he's a hypocrite because now Greg Norman's the CEO of this thing. Like it's actually getting pretty crazy. So if you're a golf fan and you don't know much about this, definitely look it up because this is going to really, really kind of change things in the world of golf.
I'm curious to see how it's going to impact Ryder Cup stuff. Like, it's something that I don't think people are thinking about right now, and I wonder if it'll hold up in court or whatever. But like Lee Westwood, Graham McDowell, Sergio, Ian Poulter, like all these guys, potentially giving up spots at really prestigious golf events in order to go get a bunch of money. And I think one of the things that's dawning on me now is all the big names that they pulled are like 45 years old, with the exception of Dustin Johnson, and he's older than people think. I think he's like 38 or something. DJ's a lot older than people think. He's like 29 or something. This dude's been around the block. And I wonder how that's going to work because like some of these guys like JC Ritchie or Taylor Gooch or whatever, they didn't really get enough time to cement themselves on the PGA Tour to jump over. So like guys like me and you are gonna be like, oh yeah, he's in the lead. A lot of people are gonna be like, oh, that's the guy. I saw his funny last name on the leaderboard at the Masters. Like that's where they know these guys from.
Gooch.
It's gonna be weird, dude. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is I hope they have different formats or different ways of thinking about the game that might end up actually growing the PGA Tour because the PGA Tour has been stuck in their way. There's been no competition for
Mm.
a million years, right? I mean, there's a European golf tour, but guys jump back and forth all the time. It's not like a big
And they're
rivalry.
partnered though
Right.
too, you know.
Right. But there's certain things about golf that like I don't blame people for not liking to watch it. Like I want to watch three of these tour players play Wolf for like $1 million, or like Bingo Bango Bongo for like do something fun, right? And I think like with this much money in there, and honestly, some of the names aren't that impressive. I think they're going to have to pull unique formats out in order to really get people excited about what's going on. And I think that might end up helping golf as a whole. And I'm also was
I'm
telling
curious.
you, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm curious about that too because I mean Mickelson said this. I mean, in one of his statements it became so controversial. He's like, the PGA's, you know, they're like you just said, they are stuck in their ways. They have their thing that they want to do. Obviously, their rulings are, you know, pretty harsh. Like that's one of the things Sergio is bitching about. I mean, what doesn't
Yeah,
he
but he's
complain
going to do
about?
that over here too.
Well, yeah, he's a complainer.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm curious about that because how it's set up right now, as they're saying, it's kind of ending in the team championship thing with 7 regular things. Like, why am I going to turn that on over the Memorial, which I'm familiar with, over the RBC Canadian, which there's good players in this field coming up this week. Like, why am I? What's going to make me turn into Live? Like, okay, there's $25 million purse. I'm not getting any of that. Like, what's going to make me care?
And they're not just competing with the PGA Tour. They're competing like with other sports because in order for this thing to even catch on, you shouldn't be so worried about the PGA Tour because if they eat into 60% of the PGA Tour viewership, this thing's going broke. Like that's not enough. I mean, I know they have insane money backing them, but like they have to, they have to compete with tennis and get those people. They have to compete with soccer and get those people. They have to get
Mm-hmm.
people to watch this instead of somebody who just sat down and it's like, oh, it's the College World Series or the Live Golf League. Like you have to get those people to watch for this thing to be successful, and then you worry about taking Colin Morikawa and John Rahm and like Victor Hovland and guys that are familiar faces to other people outside of like hardcore golf fans that are also going to grow with this league. So I think that's something that people are just like, oh man, they got so much money, and it's like, well, they're going to need it for a while because I don't know how popular this thing's going to be right off the bat. Oh, you're frozen. There you go.
Little technical difficulty on our end here. Just got just got a big freeze. But no, I mean to put a bow on that. I mean, I that's the question, right? Because if, like you said, oh, we're just going to compete with the PGA Tour. It's not like the PGA Tour is leading anything in
Yeah.
viewership.
They get like
So
2 Sundays a year, and then they're like 5th on 2 other Sundays, and that's like the climax of everything.
yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's with our internets here, but we're having some problems. That's some
The
tech
PGA
issues
is
down
trying to
here.
shut us down, dude.
The PGA is trying to shut us down for even talking about the Live Golf League here. All right, Tyson. Let's let the PGA lay down so they don't come after us. Let's move into money making time right now. Uh, let's start off with the NBA game. You know, we kind of teased it. We didn't really come out and really say what we're going to take. I think the people out there may have a feeling, but why don't you lead it off right now? Celtics are 3.5-point favorites at home. On the money line, they're minus 154. Golden State plus 130 on the money line to win straight up. And the over-under is set at 212.5. Anything you like there?
I'm taking Celtics money line. I don't know. I might have a better feeling about the spread in the 94 days we get leading up to this next game, but um, right now that feels about right to me. I mean, I've been championing Boston for 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks now, but probably longer than that. It just feels like, they still have to they gotta put these guys away. Like, not for the entirety of the series, but they gotta put them away to show them they can put them away twice. Like, if they win 2 out of the first 3, I feel much more confident. I think they're going to, but Golden State's not going down without a fight.
I like the Celtics to cover the 3.5 in this one. I think this is going to be a classic Boston game where they come back and they just explode. I think at home the role players are going to play better. I want to say I read a stat today that including the regular season and all of the playoffs, after a loss, Boston is 66% against the spread the next game, which is unheard of. Really, really good. I'm going to roll that into this situation here. I think situationally it's a really good spot for the Celtics, being able to go back home and having an extra day off to regroup, to rally, especially with the rest that Udoka gave the guys at the end of the game of game 2. So I like the Celtics to cover here. I'm also going to throw a lean out. I like over 212.5. It probably will become official, but I think this could be an explosion here. I mean, just one of those games where the Celtics go nuts, score 120, Golden State happens to get in like 100, and you're comfortably over. But official play for sure is Celtics minus 3.5.
And a couple. I got a couple props here for the game as well.
Oh yeah. Throw some props out.
First of all, Al Horford 11.5 points. I'm taking the
Okay.
over, and if I'm wrong, I'm not touching it for the rest of the series. I just feel like game 2 was an anomaly. Game 1 was an anomaly too. I mean, he's not going to come out and drop 26 again. But 11.5, I'm very comfortable with him finding, one or two threes in the corner, and some easy buckets down low, maybe some putbacks, stuff like that. And then Robert Williams over 5.5 rebounds. Like we talked about it in the Heat series, and we talked about it in the Bucks series. When this dude plays, he gets at least 6 rebounds. And every time you check the line, it opens with Robert Williams at 5.5, and then it closes Robert Williams at 6.5, 7.5. And then you lost your money. So if I'm going to lock one in right now, it's going to be Robert Williams rebounds.
I'm going to do 2 as well here, Tyson. I appreciate you bringing this up because I completely forgot about the props here. Jaylen Brown over 2.5 threes at minus 138. A little juicy, but I like that. I think he's going to find his stroke at this one. I mean, he's been hitting threes exceptionally well throughout the playoffs. I like him to get that number. And I said I think Marcus Smart's liable to have a big game. I'm going to take him over 13.5. You can get that at minus 106. So you're getting the better end of that there. I think that's probably going to go up, honestly, whether juice or not. This is probably the best you're going to get. So I take that right now. Those are 2 props for me. Real quick, Tyson, before you go into your early MMA look-aheads for Saturday, big card, Rangers at Lightning. Lightning won with 2 seconds left to really get them up off the mat in this one. The under's been hitting recently. I want to say the under is 2-1 at 5.5. I just don't know, especially with these goalies kind of locked in. If I want to play an over in this one, what I am going to do is Lightning to win in regulation. That's minus 110. So no overtime. If you're feeling spicy, you can lay a minus 1.5 at plus 146. But I'm going to be a little bit safer because I got burned in game 3 by Lightning not being able to get an open netter. I'm going to take the Lightning in regulation at minus 110.
Love it.
And by them winning with 2 seconds left, I think I actually meant 2 minutes. It's kind of all a blur. So I was just like, oh, give me an extra one. But yeah, with 2 minutes or something like that, the Lightning pulled it out.
Well, that's better than what happened to you tonight. That was heartbreaking.
That's brutal. Yeah, that's a brutal one.
But that's the way it goes, isn't it?
Yeah, that's hockey.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I got some look aheads here. For MMA, we have, let me pull it up here. I think it's UFC 275 this weekend. UFC 275. We got title fight. We're running back some of the best, or 2 title fights, running back one of the best fights of all time. It's the primer, right? Because July 2nd is going to be the International Fight Week main card with Adesanya and Volk and all those guys, Holloway. I will say that this is the worst opening line odds I think I've ever seen on a main card. Like, I don't know where these things are going to go. So I'm just going to preview kind of the top 3 here. You got Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang. they're running it back. They had one of the best fights of all time, men or women, the first time they met. But Joanna's been off for a while, and Wiley has too. But Wiley just has different level of power in her hands, and I think Joanna, as she's aged, has gotten more and more hittable. Kind of evidenced by the first time they fought. And so I like Wiley to go in there and get that one done. She's minus 180 right now. Um, Valentina Shevchenko is minus 770
Ooh.
against Talia Santos. And I think that might be the best odds that you're going to get. Like this is when Canelo fights Cans. This is this woman's entire career. Besides when she fights Amanda Nunes, she is the best mixed martial artist on the face of the planet, bar none. I don't care that she doesn't have to fight. And the things that she does it's like you send somebody to their funeral when they walk in there with her. Like the look on these women's faces as they walk down there, knowing, I have no shot. And like she's not going to be kind. It's going to be a head kick. She kicked Jessica Eye so hard it sounded like somebody took a baseball bat to a watermelon. This woman she's incredible. And minus 770. Like I gotta wait until the ways to win come out and over under on rounds here because I'm not really interested in playing a minus 770 ticket, even if I know it's going to hit. I'm not going to put $100 on something to win. Like it's just that's not the way it's going to work.
That's how we do it here at the round table for you bettors out there.
Glover Teixeira and Yuri. I'm not even going to try to say his last name. I think it's Prochazka or something. Glover Teixeira, the oldest champion in the UFC, the toughest dude to maybe ever step foot inside the octagon. Just an absolute champion through and through. One of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners of all time. His hands have gotten better as he's aged. He's just so good at controlling space and the way he grapples. It's like, you're wearing a wet blanket basically because you cannot get this guy off of you. And he's really good manipulating that space, hitting you with elbows, shoulders, punches, all that stuff. Yuri might take his head off.
Ooh, man.
that's where I'm at right now. This dude, first of all, he's like an actual like samurai. Like he practices like the Bushido, whatever it is. He says that the 5 Rings book or something was like transformative in his life. This dude like bathes in 0-degree water, all this crazy stuff. But then he's also champion level kickboxer, high level grappler, and he's 29.
Woo.
And he's been in the UFC for 3 fights, and he's nearly killed 3 people.
God.
And this dude I think he has 2 fights, and he won fight of the night or performance of the night both times. He's coming from Ryzen. He hasn't lost in like 4 or 5 years, something like that. I mean, this guy, he is special, and people haven't been able to watch him on the main stage, and I worry that Dana White didn't do a good enough job of putting a card together around him because this should have been a coming out party, like the likes of when Conor got to go to Ireland. When some of these guys get to go in front of and they're third on the card, but it's because we have Francis Ngannou is fighting. That's where this guy belongs because he will be headlining soon enough. But Dana fucked up with this one because this dude shouldn't be leading his this pay-per-view because he's a draw to me. A lot of people are going to be like, 45-year-old Glover Teixeira and a guy I've never heard of. I'm probably good on this one.
Yeah, I mean that's me. I mean, so I'm glad you're telling me this stuff. I'm sure the audience is glad too. I mean, I obviously like fights. I've never heard of them, so I'm gonna tune in now. I mean, before I was a little iffy on it, but now I got to see this guy.
He's special. Like I think that he has the potential. John Jones is gone from light heavyweight. And in fighting, it takes about 4 fights for somebody to lose their GOAT status, and we got a new guy. It's like, look at him. He's the best ever. And he, in my mind, is going to be the next step. It'll be premature because it always is, but he's going to be thrown in that discussion, I think.
Oof, that's quite an endorsement, especially from Tyson. I mean, Tyson's a huge MMA guy. He's been watching it since I've known him, which is in middle school. I mean,
and we're hitting at 80% this year.
Tyson's red hot, so he's going to have some stuff for you. I mean, he's not laying 770s like he said. Like it's his money he's betting too. Like he wants value and everything. So he's gonna.
If you have enough money to bet $770 to win 100, then I would do it. But if you do, then maybe do something else.
Yeah.
Then bet on UFC 275.
Go buy the Broncos.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good
But
one.
but as always, thank you guys for listening. Like I said, we're gonna have more stuff out. I mean, we're doing an early podcast this week, obviously, to give you guys our reaction to the NBA. With that being said, because it's early, all the lines aren't out on FanDuel Sportsbook for Tyson to give out some picks. I'm gonna tweet out my golf picks this week. I'm actually pretty confident in the RBC Canadian this week. I like a few guys, so make sure to follow our social media, our Instagram @_ the roundtable pod _ TikTok is the same. Again, @ the roundtable pod _ and our Twitter @TRT _ pod. We're going to be posting just a bunch of different stuff. I mean, so if you're missing stuff or you have questions, contact us there. If you're like, okay, any questions, I mean, baseball stuff, like any different sort of things that you have questions about, whether it's gambling or otherwise, or just curious our opinions on, contact us there and we will get back to you.
And I got Brad into fantasy football for the first time
Oh
here.
yeah.
We're gonna be running through some stuff.
Yeah, Dynasty League. Tyson finally wore on me. Because I don't do fantasy anymore, but he's like, dude, I'm telling you, Dynasty. So if you guys are fantasy football guys out there, we'll both be diving in this time around. We'll have different videos and stuff out on social and our YouTube that you can consume.
Yes, sir.
Game 3 Wednesday. Tyson and I may be doing a live show after. Depends on our schedules. We've been actually pretty busy this past couple weeks, so it's all dependent. But if we do one, we'd love for you to join us. But until next time on the roundtable, guys, we appreciate you listening. Peace.